You know what? My husband doesn't let us. We have to go either go home or.
The other side about this is it's continually pulling my pants down. So I'm gonna go stand up there and my pants are gonna down
I'm
around
gonna
my
get
ankles.
mad. I'll have my camera ready.
Yeah, do that.
Blackmail.
Sticky feet, just saying Fox usually stuffs his own hole first, but could be right about that. Mine seems okay.
Are you ready to go?
We're ready to go. School is open.
How are you, clerk?
Should I just start? Welcome, everyone, to the Board of Canvassers meeting. We are located on today's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022. It is 3:50, 10 minutes till 4 p.m. We're located at 47 South Main Street, Tooele, on 3rd floor and Suite 306. Roll call. We have Councilman Thomas, Councilman Tripp, Councilman Hoffman, Councilman Hamner, Councilman Wardle. We have our county manager, Andy Welch, assistant county manager, Brittany Lopez, and Nikki. Thank you for being here from the clerk's office. We recognize that we have various people out in the audience right now, and thank you all for being here, whoever may be online. So our first, number 3 is public comment. Is anybody in the audience that would like to make a comment? Or even sing a song, auditor, or something? No.
Is 4 minutes enough time?
Council Allison McCoy, Tooele County Auditor. Typically in the past, at the state level, the auditors and clerk's offices are typically combined. And so I have had the honor and privilege of working with Tracy and the auditor clerk group. And I just want to give a shout out to all the clerks, and especially our clerk, for the integrity with which she ran the election and the hard work that she's put behind this, and her staff. In Utah, we do vote by mail, which you guys are very well aware, and they've worked very hard to make sure that they showed their process to the public, and they did a great job. And so I just want to, from an auditing perspective and from sitting on the outside, I just want to share that perspective and tell Tracy and her staff what a great job they did. So
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate it. Any other public comments? Not, then we'll move right to our canvass of November 8th, 2022 election, and our county clerk, Tracy Shaw.
Thank you, Board of Canvass. Just wanted to provide you with an election report. Things went really well this election. I feel like our team is really finding their stride now that we've had a few under our belts, and the team is really coming together in some really amazing ways. Some things to note for this election: we did add 6 additional drop boxes, which I think the community very much appreciated, having the ability to drop off their ballots closer to home. We also added a camera in the election room to provide a live stream of the election room, which we did hear a lot of public feedback about that, a lot of positive comments and response to that. People appreciated being able to watch from their homes to know what we were doing, other than maybe crashing the county website. But other than that, it was fine, totally fine. We were the first in the state to utilize a voting app for our overseas and military voters. We had a significantly higher rate of return for that particular group of voters, which I thought was really cool, very awesome. We did process a total of 22,317 ballots. It's the most we've ever done under my tenure as clerk, and so that equated to about just under 60% rate of return for the approximate 37,800 voters active registered voters that we have here in Tooele County. We did have a few ballots rejected due to not having matching signatures or not signed or weren't eligible to be counted. As you can see in the canvass report that I provided to you previously, that there was 489 of those ballots that were rejected, which equates to a 0.02% rejection rate, which is very, very small, and I'm very proud of that rate. And of that rate, 210 voters took action to cure their ballot, is what we call it. When someone fails to sign or doesn't have a matching signature, they can submit an affidavit saying that, hey, this is my signature and it is valid. And so that we were able to go ahead and move forward and count their ballot. So 210 cured them, 245 were contacted as outlined in state code, and then some. The team went above and beyond to make sure that each voter that did have a rejected ballot was notified and informed that we weren't able to count their ballot, and gave them the deadline and the structure for the instructions for what they should do to cure that. And 245 voters chose not to take that action. 34 were ineligible to be counted. These are usually ones that come from a previous election, so obviously those wouldn't be eligible, or they arrived after the postmark deadlines that are outlined in our state code. So our actual rejection rate, meaning they were eligible to count but not actually be counted, is only 0.01% of all ballots, which in my opinion is really phenomenal.
So remind me what those numbers were again. What were the total ballots?
Total ballots, we had 22,317.
And the total that were rejected?
The ballot
completely
number rejected?
Uncured rejected.
Uncured rejected was 245. And we did have a really amazing in-person turnout. We had 59 early voters and 1,023 in-person voters, so we were very busy at our 2 polling locations. And we learned a lot from that, actually having a crowd for once. We haven't had that problem in the past, having only 50 attend max at either of our locations before. So we learned some things, and one change we plan to implement in future years is to have an additional polling place, probably in the Stansbury Park area, which may require some additional equipment. So that'll be something you'll see coming from our office in future budget requests, probably 2024 as we prepare for the presidential. So something to be looking out for. The only minor issue that we did have a technical problem with our ballot adjudication, meaning that the results wouldn't stick temporarily, but that is an issue that we quickly resolved with our election vendor. We were able to resolve that before our canvass presented today, so all of those results were applied to the reports that you're seeing now. At the request of Councilman Hoffman, I just wanted to briefly outline some of our security measures that we take to secure our elections, since that has been a pretty hot topic and a hot button issue with the public lately. So just for the public's benefit as well as your own, if you're not familiar with our processes, all of our by-mail ballots do have a unique barcode and ID number that are associated, and those are generated by the state voter registration system. Each eligible voter can only have one ID at a time, and in order to generate a second one, the first one must be manually deleted or spoiled, as they call it in state code. So this ensures that only one ballot is generated per voter, and that a new ballot is only generated by request. And so that's how we can make sure and ensure that each person's voting only one time. Signature verification is also central to our ballot security, in that every single ballot that arrives in our office, whether by mail or by person or through a drop box, is checked prior to being opened, meaning if we can't verify that that signature is valid, then those votes are never opened or counted. We compare the envelope signature to up to 5 images that the state has on record as their voter record. And those usually come from the DMV when people are updating their driver's licenses. So I would advise you to be very careful how you're signing that pad there at the DMV, because that is a signature that we will be using to compare in our election time. And we also have previous registration forms as well as election forms to compare against, and we take digital images of all those things as they come in and add them to the records. For our in-person voters, it's much the same. We require people to show ID, and their information that they provide with that driver's license and verbally needs to match what we have on record in the voter system. And they also have to sign in our digital poll pads to provide that signature. If it's not matching what they have on their driver's license or what they provide to us, or if they're voting for the very first time, then those voters would be asked to vote provisionally, and they have to provide ID and proof of residency to verify that they are providing the information that's accurate and that they are indeed eligible to vote in our county. Provisional and same-day registrations are held separately from other ballots that are matching, and then we hand verify them in our office prior to opening or counting those post-election. For our electronic voters, those military and overseas voters that I mentioned previously, they have to fill out a specific form requesting this particular voting method of receiving an electronic ballot, in which they have to provide personally identifying information that has to match the voter record. They enter that same identifying information directly into the voting app, which would also match, and they also sign digital in the app and have that matching signature on file with our office as well. If those ballots are valid, then they're replicated in our office as outlined in state code, and then we count them moving forward. The post-election audit is also a huge key and factor in what we do as our part of our election security. That public audit is held after each election, and this time it was held publicly on November 14th using the new guidelines that were outlined by the Lieutenant Governor's office. And those guidelines included swearing in our election auditors, and they sign an oath of office to conduct this duty specifically for this purpose, and one of which should be a member of the Board of Canvass, which Councilman Tripp was kind enough to stay behind the UAC convention and have some fun with us, if you want to call it fun. My kind of fun.
It was somewhat fun.
And we also had one member of the public. We chose Philip Parrish, who's been a long time election volunteer, who has election experience, but didn't take part in any of these particular aspects that we were auditing at the time. So he was a great resource to that. The auditors that serve in this audit, they verify the physical ballots and they compare that against what the tabulation equipment marks as a record, meaning they're giving voting credit where the voter has placed a mark. And so this is the cast vote record that is being publicly examined as part of this public audit. And I know that's kind of been a buzzword among commissioners and councilmen across the state. So that is something that was publicly examined as part of our audit, and there were no inaccuracies found during this process, this portion of it, where we were comparing that. The auditors also verified the envelope signatures, that they match the images that we have on file, and they also verified the voter precinct location is plotted correctly in the voter registration system, and that proper voting credit is given, and that their political parties are accurate. We did have a few minor errors found during this portion of the auditing process, but they were very minor. Someone was misplotted. We fixed each of those things. We had a ballot signature that was challenged, that the auditors felt like a bad call was maybe made on one particular ballot. But those were minor. We addressed them as best we could and corrected those going forward with any of those discrepancies that were found during this process. It took roughly 5 hours to audit the approximate 250 ballots that were randomly selected by the Lieutenant Governor's office for us to audit. And I would welcome Tom's thoughts or comments on that process.
I think Tracy's accurately presented. It's actually 250 were monitoring how the votes were counted by the machine versus the ballot themselves. And another 250 were monitoring the signatures. We actually examined
250 through each of those two processes.
we examined
500,
the total
yes.
500 ballots in some form, in some way.
Yeah.
And as Tracy mentioned, we found nothing on the machine counting. The ballots in the machine count seemed to be precisely the same. And the other one, you know, sometimes you had a squiggly line for a signature, and we didn't think the two squiggly lines were equivalent. We found one which had been sent, was listed in the wrong precinct for the address.
Yeah.
They had received the right ballot regardless. Both precincts had the same ballot, so there was no problem, and we cured that address during the audit.
Fix it right there on the spot, yep.
And the other one, someone had printed their name either on the envelope or was the one on.
Versus cursive, yeah.
So they printed on the envelope and all the other signatures were cursive, so.
Oh, there was one other where voting credit was not given to one voter, but we just went in and gave them credit, one that was missed inadvertently, and that was another thing that we corrected, those 3 minor errors that I recall from the audit.
And I thought one of the interesting artifacts is someone sent in a primary ballot in the final election, and that was properly not counted.
We got quite a handful
So
of
that was
those.
one of the 250 we examined, and it was handled appropriately for the auditors.
Very good, thank you. I would just say that any that are concerned with election security on this board or just members of the public in general, I would invite any of you to come and tour our office at any time and come and observe the process during the election time and attend our public demonstration in the election equipment prior to each election. It's very transparent, the entire process from start to finish, and we really have nothing to hide, so all are welcome. So having said all this, having gone through the public audit and going through our cure process timeline as outlined by code, I present to the board the 600+ page document of the election canvas for approval, which includes the election summary, which gives the totals for the election as a whole in the county for each of the races, the precinct level election results, the statement of the number of ballots cast, the names of all the candidates that appeared on the ballot, The statement of the ballots that were rejected and why, and a signed affidavit by me at the very end stating that these results are correct to the best of my knowledge, that the election was conducted according to state statute, and the election equipment and the voter registration database have both been properly certified and maintained. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to address them. I'll do the best that I can.
Council, any questions, comments?
No, thanks.
Just a comment, say, Tracy, thanks to you and your team. Sound like it went smooth. And
Can't
so
complain.
Congratulations and thank you.
Welcome.
Well, and I think that it's important to, there's some discussion throughout the state about validity right now. We have none of those concerns in our county.
It's
So
nice
thank
to not
you.
make newspaper headlines,
Yeah,
for sure.
so,
In that same vein, though, they specifically had Iron County come by the USAC bunch and point out the kinds of problems their ballots disappeared. They had to do
That's scary.
emergency measures, and there were still about 6,000 people may not have voted.
Oh, wow.
Their community really came together, though, to solve that problem, which I thought was very commendable for their county.
Colin, I'm guessing you're not up there just to look pretty. You had a comment?
Certainly not for that reason. Tracy sent you a report this morning, the first page of the report she sent you, and then she updated that later in the morning, about a half hour later. You will need to sign that, each of you.
I do have that on your desk now to sign, President.
And the other thing that you need to do is you actually need to declare the winners. And so let me read the list. This comes straight from the report that Tracy sent you this morning. And maybe just orally do that in this meeting so that Nikki can make a record of it. And Nikki, I will give you the list so that you don't have to recreate it.
If we disagree with those winners, can we object? The state code says when you.
here we go.
So you can object, but only under certain criteria.
For Tooele County Council, Kendall Thomas and Eric A. Stromberg. For Tooele County Attorney, Scott A. Broadhead. Tooele County Auditor, Allison H. McCoy. Tooele County Clerk, Tracy Shaw. Tooele County Sheriff, Paul J. Wimmer. Local School Board Number 5, Emily Seifus. Local School Board Number 6, Melissa Rich. Local School Board Number 7, Elizabeth Smith. Lake Point City Council 3-year term, Ryan Zumwalt, Dan the Lake Point Man, and Jonathan D. Gerard. Lake Point City Council 1-year term, Kathleen Von Hatten and Doyle Gerard. And then Proposition Number 6, Tooele City Question 1, this is the PAR tax, it passed, and so you declare that approved. And Proposition Number 7, Grantsville City Question Number 1, also the PAR tax, it was successful, so you declared that approved. And if we can just do that in the record, I'll get the list to Nikki.
In regard to those PAR taxes, even though those are municipal elections and city councils normally canvass their
Each
own
of those
stuff.
cities will canvass their own ballot proposition. Tooele
Okay.
City's
So
already done
they'll
so,
get
and
double
Grantsville's doing
canvassed
that
then.
today.
It won't hurt.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the canvass of the election and declare the winners as stated by Colin.
I'll second that.
Hearing a motion from Councilman Wardle, second from Councilman Hoffman. Any further discussions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, call for a vote. All those in can I do that, or do I need to go down and name them?
You probably ought to roll call it.
So we'll do it by roll call and vote. Councilman Thomas, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Tripp, how do you
Yay.
vote? Councilman Hoffman?
Aye.
Councilman Hamner also votes aye. Councilman Wardle?
Aye.
Sounds unanimous, Nikki. And then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.